Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to share with you some of the new Makeup Geek products that I got recently. Some of them happen to be the Duo Chrome, including eyeshadow and pigments, and the others happen to be the more recently released matte eyeshadows. So if you want to see some up-close swatches and a brief overview of what the shadows are like, then just keep watching. I think I'm going to start off with the Duo Chrome eyeshadows. I picked out 6 of the 12 that they had available. The first shade I picked up is called I'm Peachless. A Makeup Geek describes this as a buff base with peachy pink reflex. And this colour is absolutely stunning. It can be worn on an everyday basis because it's got that buff base which makes it pretty kind of neutral. The peachy pink reflex are really prominent when you kind of tilt to the sides. It's very much like a subtle golden peachy pink. It's kind of hard to describe. These pigments are so incredible and so unique in the sense that they've got so many different colours. It's just really hard to kind of describe what colour it is that you're seeing. The next colour I picked up is called Rockstar. I think this is part of their kind of old permanent line. This one's kind of unusual because it looks like a really pale grey shade in the pan. But when I saw the reflex in this shade, I was absolutely sold. Makeup Geek describes this as a medium silver base with purple pink reflex. You can really wear this shade out so that it isn't too much on an everyday basis and you get that really beautiful pinky purple reflex on the eyes, or you can really build it up so that the silver base is a lot more kind of prominent. So the next shade I picked up is called Mai Tai, and Mai Tai reminds me of a cocktail because it is the name of a cocktail, and Makeup Geek describes this as an apricot base with orchid reflex. It's very strong in an apricot base in the sense that it's a very kind of like a strong corally peach, and I think the orchid reflex in this shadow is kind of really subtle, so it just kind of works really well. I do think it's great for a summery look, but Mai Tai also carries that warmth that would just make it work for an autumn shade. So the next shade I picked up is called Ritzy, and Makeup Geek describes Ritzy as a warm red brown with green and gold reflex. You can certainly see that kind of reddish brown coming through, but it is a predominantly green shadow. However, when you swatch it, I think that the reddy brown definitely comes out a lot more. I mean, in certain lights, that green is so vibrant. It's also grounded by that really warm red brown, and that's what kind of makes this colour very kind of neutral, and it makes it a colour that you could just wear and it wouldn't look like, wow, it's too much you're wearing green eyeshadow. Then the next shade I picked up is called Havoc. Now Havoc doesn't look too dissimilar from Ritzy. Ritzy is definitely more of a golden green, whereas Havoc is more of a teal green. Makeup Geek describes this as a warm red-brown base with teal reflex. Again, when you look at the pan, it's predominantly green that you can see, but when you swatch it, that's when the kind of reddish brown really comes through. It all just depends on what light you're in and kind of what angle you're kind of standing if you're wearing this shadow. In certain lights you will really see that teal green coming through, and in other lights it looks like just a really pretty brown shade, and again that's kind of what makes it really wearable. And then finally, of the Duo Chrome eyeshadow, I picked up Steampunk, and Makeup Geek describes this as a black base with rich copper reflex. It looks like a kind of a rich brown in the pan. When you swatch it, you really see that black coming through, and I actually think the shade looks darker when you swatch it than in the pan. And then you can really see in certain lights that brown picking up. I don't think it's quite a copper brown. I think it's more of a kind of medium to dark, really rich chocolatey brown as opposed to a coppery brown. When I think of copper, I think of more of a red tone. This is just a really nice colour to kind of smoke things out and amp a look up. Just pop it in the outer corner along the lash line and you're good to go. I only picked up the 2 Duo Chrome pigments, and they are Hologram and Wildfire. Now these two don't look too dissimilar in the pots, but Makeup Geek describes Hologram as an orangey pink base with green and gold reflex. I mean, that's like 4 colours in one. Initially when you swatch it, if you get any chunks of pigments, it does look quite kind of vibrant orange, but when you kind of blend out the pigment, it actually becomes a really beautiful golden green shade, almost like more golden than green, but you can certainly see the green reflex picked up, and you also still see that kind of orange tone to it. And then if you tilt it in some lights, you can see that pink coming through as well. This is definitely more of a quadrochrome, if you like, as opposed to duochrome, because there's definitely more than 2 colours in there, at least 4 colours in there. And because it's got that golden shade running through it, it's kind of very wearable on the lid, and I'd say that you could probably get away with wearing this on an everyday basis. Just blend it out really sheerly, and if you just pop like a kind of darker orangey brown in the crease, and it just makes it a bit more unique. I just think it keeps kind of people guessing, but again, it's not like a vibrant kind of green or red that you can't probably get away with wearing on a day-to-day basis, but this colour I definitely think you can. Wildfire is, I'd say, the older sister to Hologram. It's a little bit more deeper in tone. It's got a bit more red in it. Makeup Geek describes Wildfire as a red coral base with gold reflex. So like I said, this has a lot more kind of red to it, and it doesn't have that green that Hologram has. But again, it's one that has gold reflex through it. I think you could still get away with wearing this on a day-to-day basis. It's so beautiful. It certainly reminds me of kind of the late long summer nights, but then again, because it's got that redness in it, I think it's kind of reminiscent to kind of the leaves changing colour, so another colour that's perfect for autumn. Okay, moving on to the matte eyeshadows, which are more of the recently released ones. I only picked up a handful of shades, 6 to be precise, out of the 20 that were released. The first of the 6 new mattes that I picked out is called Confection. Makeup Geek describes Confection as a blush pink with very subtle grey undertones and a matte finish. Obviously it's a matte finish. Very subtle grey undertones. Now that kind of can throw people a bit off, because when you look at it, there's certainly no grey there, but I think by adding that in the description just kind of suggests that it's more of a cool tone pink. Now this is a very, very pale pink. I'd say it's pretty much a baby pink, and it's certainly slightly more on the cooler side. I do think pink makes a good alternative as a transition colour, just a nice alternative then, rather than chuck in kind of a peach or a tan in the crease, and I think it kind of works well, particularly if you're kind of wearing more cool tones. I'm really surprised at the texture of these mattes, because when you touch them, you literally feel like you're gliding on them. They're really, really smooth. The colour payoff is incredible, as with all the Makeup Geek eyeshadows. And the blendability, I have to say, is much more better than the original matte shadows, which were already great. So these are even better. Next colour I picked up kind of looks similar to Confection, but it's just a little bit deeper. And this one's called Petal Pusher. And Makeup Geek describes Petal Pusher as a medium rose brown with a matte finish. I'm not sure whether it's a rose brown, because I don't think it's brown at all in the slightest bit. And Petal Pusher looks like it's slightly more deeper, but slightly more kind of lilac, so in a sense a bit more cooler. When you swatch it, you definitely see that lilac undertone in there, so great if you're doing more of a kind of plummy eye. This would look also good as a transition colour or something just to deepen up your crease. So moving on to the next shade, which I feel like is probably the most highly anticipated of the whole collection, and it is called Cherry Cola. I love that name. And Makeup Geek describes Cherry Cola as a deep brown with strong red undertones. So it swatches out as a burgundy maroon brown, and it's got an ever so slight hint of purple in there as well. For those of you that are wondering how it compares to Bitten, Bitten is a lot more red, whereas Cherry Cola is more deeper and is a bit more kind of a maroony, plummy brown. So they are very different, but I feel like they do the same job. If you have one, you don't really need the other. I really like Cherry Cola. I actually might like Cherry Cola more than Bitten. Bitten, sometimes I look at it in the pan and I feel a little bit overwhelmed that I think it's a bit too red, but when you actually apply it, it doesn't look that red, and I should be wearing it more. But I know I'm probably going to get a lot of wear out of Cherry Cola. Then the next two shades that I picked out, the first of the two is called Vintage. Vintage is described by Makeup Geek as a medium brown with mauve undertones. Mauve is my weakness, and this one, I originally thought it was more of a grey colour, but when I realised it was a brown with a mauve undertone, I just thought, wow, this is pretty much going to be a versatile eyeshadow. I'm going to be able to wear it with anything. I feel like this one is just a great colour to kind of add into the crease to really amp up a cool tone look. And then moving on to the last of the matte shadows, and it's called Americano. And Makeup Geek describes Americano as a dark brown with subtle purple undertones. And this is certainly a very, very dark brown. For me, the darkest shade, aside from Corrupt in the Makeup Geek collection that I had, was Mocha, and I felt like it wasn't dark enough, and I definitely think that Americano is darker, and also because it's got that really nice plum undertone as well, plummy colours, my cup of tea, and I think it just goes nice with the kind of selection of shades that I picked. All kind of very kind of pinky, plummy, mauvey, and a really nice colour palette. And sorry, I actually lied, that wasn't the last shade I picked up at all. I'd completely forgotten that I picked up the shade Mirage. Now Mirage is described by Makeup Geek as a warm buttercream with a satin matte finish. There's a slight, ever so slight amount of sheen in there. Because it's a satin matte, it just glides seamlessly. There's absolutely no drag. It just makes it incredibly easy to work with and to blend. I just thought it'd be a nice all over the lid shade, also a great way to kind of highlight the brow bone if you just wanted something really subtle. Mirage is actually part of the Vegas Lights palette, which came out ages and ages ago, but they've decided to make it a permanent solo eyeshadow, which is great because I hate it when they have colours in a palette that are not available to buy separately, because if you fall in love with a colour, you kind of have to buy the whole palette. So that's all from the shadows I picked up. Let me know if you've picked up any of the Duo Chrome eyeshadows, the Pigments, or even the new matte eyeshadows. Let me know what you think of them. If you've enjoyed me kind of waffling on about these new products from Makeup Geek, then please do give me a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed yet, you would absolutely make my day if you did, and I shall see you in my next video. Bye!